Malhotra, who's just written a book, 800-page book, viewers, identifying those who are trying to dismantle the idea of India. Let's go to them, Nizam Bhai. Let's bring up Rajiv Malhotra and Dr. Subramanian, Swamy, who don't need any introduction. Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, let me begin with you first. The PFI is arguably the most visible face of Hindu phobia in this country. But despite this, an ecosystem is still backing it. What explains this persistent support?
Persistent support has been building for a long time, and this is what we've been calling Breaking India Forces. It's a coalition of the global left, of pan-Islam, and now, unfortunately, they brought in the whole African-American movement. The whole Black Lives Matter movement has been taken over by the Marxists, and this is called critical race theory, also called wokeism. So American wokeism, which is basically an ideology that says structures should be dismantled, nations, including nation states, including families, anything that is a dominant structure is oppressing those who are the minorities of the world. And so the minorities of America, the minorities of France, the minorities of India, wherever else, they have to be unified and overthrow the majorities or the structures, because those are the oppressors. Of course, certain oppressors, or what we would call oppressors, are exempt. One of including the oppressors in places like Iran, the oppressors in places like Saudi Arabia. So the oppressors in the Islamic world are exempt. And the oppressors in places like China, they dare not stand up to them because those people don't put up with their nonsense. So these are, we are soft targets, basically, of this new wokeism, global left alliance with pan-Islam, and hence this is happening. Well, and this will get worse.
This will get worse. Ominous words. Dr. Swamy, the Congress, the left, several other opposition parties are saying the center must also ban the RSS. What do you make of this?
Well, as far as banning is concerned, it's long overdue. It was unnecessarily that we were giving them a long rope. Their long rope was not necessary. And what has happened is that somehow the word had got around during the UPA period that these things can be done with impunity. And we also took a little time, perhaps, I don't know what the compulsions were, but I think at last something has happened. This should be a warning to all. When India and Pakistan were created, it was clearly assumed that the Muslims of India will be Indian Muslims and not subject to fatwas from abroad or from any extremist groups anywhere in the world. And unfortunately, the Congress period, this has been forgotten, that was the understanding when we divided India into two parts. One-third went to Pakistan. I think it's about time to understand that and I know Muslims enough quite well. I have even relatives who are Muslims through marriage in my family. And most of them, 95% of them, want to be Indians. They want to participate in the great Indian effort. And therefore, I think organizations like PFI or whatever they are called should be banned, and I think it should be a strict warning to everybody in the country.
Mr. Malhotra, you just heard Dr. Swamy. What is the ecosystem hoping to prove by drawing this false equivalence between the RSS on one side and Islamist radicals on the other?
So this is a very huge phenomena going on that you know, one way to cover up their problems is to say that it's no worse than everywhere else, and if there are bad Muslims and bad Islamic organizations, there is also bad Hindus, and the bad Hindus are RSS. So RSS is seen as sort of the grassroots organization that must be dismantled in order to create chaos in India. And if there's chaos in India, then new people can come in, new forces can come, fill the vacuum of power, and that's what they really want. So the attack on the nation state is seen as top-down. because the nation state is a top-down entity, the military, the government, and the courts and all that. And the bottom-up grassroots is the Hinduism, the Hindu society, and dismantling that requires dismantling the various organizations and also family structures, festivals, etc.
Well, let me tell you, viewers, that Mr. Malhotra is a Hindutva ideologue. He knows what he's talking about. Mr. Malhotra, what will it take to dismantle Hindu phobia that we're seeing?
So to dismantle Hindu phobia, we have to counter this whole narrative with our narrative. And one of the things I brought out in the book Snakes in the Ganga, which I just launched with, and you know about it, is that we've identified the center of poison where all this is coming from are think tanks in the United States, mainly Harvard and others like it. And what we could do, what is within our power, is to convince Indian billionaires who are funding it to not only stop doing so, but actually to reverse it, use their clout in places like Harvard and to demand a whole change of discourse, because what starts in Harvard doesn't stay in Harvard. It spreads over the world. And so if we have clout, if we have leverage in places like that, we are not using it. We ought to be using it to sort of fight the Hindu phobia over there on their own turf. Unless, see, Jai Shankar is going around like a fire with a fire extinguisher, putting out this fire, putting out that fire. Home Ministry is going around, putting out this group and that group. But we got to figure out where are they coming from, who is feeding them, where is the intellectual center, and we have to go and tackle that. And we have to tackle it properly with sophistication. And our billionaires are entrenched there, but they're entrenched in funding the wrong kind of people. They're probably very naive about it, and they need to be educated.
They need to be educated. Okay, cut the money. Well, listening to you, one gets the impression that cracking down an organization here or there is just going to be a short-term fix and not a long-term solution, Mr. Malhotra.
Yeah, if you look at it, you know, when there was this farmers' protest, there was a full-page ad in the Washington Post, and they had a dozen or so organizations sponsoring very openly, you know, supporting the overthrow of the government rule and all that stuff. Similarly with the 370 and the CAA, all sorts of things where they're happening, there is an international support, and they're very vocal. They are not hiding behind this. So if you look at this Dismantling Hindutva conference, which got 200-300 academic people signing up overnight, where did it come from? So what you have to look at is in the last couple of years, there is an acceleration of this happening, and people in India are just putting out one fire at a time. And they need to go, of course you need to put out the fires as they come, but you also need to look at where are the centers where the poison is being manufactured, what is the ideology of this poison, where are the big factories which are producing these snakes on a large scale, on an industrial scale, and sending them everywhere. Those are the things that have not been addressed by the Indian side.
Okay, Dr. Swamy, Owaisi says that in Ajmer blast case, the convicted terrorists were ex-RSS pracharaks, etc. So why no action against the RSS? It's quite clearly linked to terror.
I think Owaisi doesn't know what a pracharak means. Pracharak is an office bearer of the organization. He has a standing. He has undergone training. And to my knowledge, there was no pracharak ever arrested in the history of India for such activities. So therefore, this has been a popular sport that if you catch a Muslim doing anti-national work, then the next thing is, why not the RSS? These are all diversionary tactics. Obviously, being a lawyer, he knows how to update these matters. I don't think we should pay any attention to what he says. We are very clear. This country is, according to the Constitution of India, a secular country, a secular being defined as equality for all religions to practice. But we will not tolerate any extremists in any side, even within the Hindu community or the Muslim community or any other community. This has to go according to the Constitution and according to the democratic principles.
Okay, well, viewers, you've heard two very influential voices tonight. And they're clear. They have no doubts in their mind. Diversionary tactics, but they're also saying something very important. that we really need to holistically address this problem